Christina Clay from Cooper, and she is going to tell us a little bit about sickle cell.
Tell me, you got a big mouth?
I have a big mouth. So, can everyone hear me if I talk like this?
Yes.
Great. So, I'm Dr. Christina Clay. I'm a hematologist, which means that I specialize in taking care of blood disorders. I'm the head of the Sickle Cell program at Cooper, so that's sort of my passion. But I take care of people with all kinds of sickle cell disorders, sometimes just anemia, sometimes low platelet counts, low blood counts, or even high blood counts. Sometimes TTP. We have patients with TTP, which Mr. Wynn's going to talk about later. But today I'm going to talk about sickle cell. And the reason is that sickle cell is the most common genetic disorder in the world. There are about 130,000 people in America who have sickle cell. Most of them are black, not all. So some people are Hispanic, some people identify as whites, no Asians, but it's not a huge group, but as I said, it's the biggest genetic issue in the world. And a lot of people just don't know about it. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about it. I'm going to teach you a little bit about your blood and your bodies, and then we're going to talk a little more about sickle cell. So red blood cells. So red blood cells are the cells in our blood that carry oxygen. So they go to the lung, they pick up oxygen, they go to the rest of the body, and they drop the oxygen off to give us energy. Hemoglobin is the stuff inside the red blood cells that actually holds, like a little nest, actually holds the oxygen. So this is a normal red cell and hemoglobin inside, and it's doing its job. Sickle cell, so there's a change in one of the genes, the chromosomes, that tells your body how to make hemoglobin. And when there's this change, the hemoglobin that it makes is different. It still carries oxygen pretty well, but when it lets its oxygen go, it tends to clump up. We call it to polymerize, but it tends to clump up. See on the right, that little chain. And the hemoglobin molecules, instead of staying kind of loose and free inside the red blood cells, they start stacking up, like they were little pieces of Lego toys that stacked up on top of each other. And then that makes the red blood cell collapse into these funky shapes. So when I look at the blood under the microscope, which I do all the time, this is what I see. And this is kind of a normal red blood cell. And that is a sickle cell. So, but what's the problem with that? The hemoglobin carries oxygen pretty well, but when the cells are that funny shape, they clump up together. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, when you're told your blood count, your hemoglobin is low.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean your red blood cells are low as well?
Yes. So that's a really common thing. Like we'll tell people you're anemic.
Right.
What we're saying is you don't have enough red blood cells, and if you don't have enough red blood cells, then you don't have enough hemoglobin. On the blood tests, like everybody now can see their blood tests, right, on their portals and all that. You'll see we list the red RBC, the red blood cell count. We also list the hemoglobin. There are disorders where those are different, but most of the time, when somebody is anemic, their red cell count is low and their hemoglobin is low. Does that answer? Yeah. That's different than iron.
Right.
Just right, because there are people who will call us up and say, the doctor wants me to see you because they told me my iron is low.
Right.
What the doctor said was you're anemic. And iron deficiency is one cause of anemia, but so is sickle cell. And a lot of people with sickle cell actually have way too much iron. So I know that's something that people get confused all the time. Anyway, back to the sickle cell. That was a great question. Thank you. So when the cells are this funny shape, instead of being round and smooth and able to flow properly, they get these funny shapes, and then they get sticky, and they clump up together, and they cause a blockage in the arteries. So if you imagine these little arteries, that's the part of the body that is like the tubes that takes the blood where it needs to go. When they block up, any part of the body that was supposed to be getting blood from that artery, now it's not getting any blood, and it will die. Now, if it's the bone, it hurts. So that's why a lot of people with sickle cell will have pain. But it happens all over the body. So not just in the bone, but if it happens in the brain, it causes a stroke. So it's actually pretty common for people with sickle cell to have strokes. Sometimes they don't even know they've had them, because they're little tiny blood vessels that get blocked up. But over time, it causes damage. The other place is silent is the kidneys. So that blockage can happen in the kidneys over years and years, and they don't even notice it. It doesn't hurt, but then they're 30 years old and their kidneys are failing. And they'll look at me and they'll say, but I don't have bad sickle cell, which means they're telling me, well, they don't have a lot of pain. But that doesn't mean that there's not damage going on in other organs. So why does this happen? Why did this happen? Well, the reason is that in people with sickle cell, this is a funny thing, but they are less likely to be infected or die from malaria. Now, we don't think about that here in the United States too much, but in West Africa, in parts of Saudi Arabia, there was a lot of malaria. And so this mutation, this change in the gene happened, probably just kind of happened by mistake, but then those people were more likely to live. So then, because they lived, then their children lived and might have this gene in them too. This is where most of the sickle cell in the world is. So while we have 130,000 people here, in Nigeria they have 2 million. So other parts of the world have a whole lot more people with sickle cell than we do. But that's why. And then this lovely lady asked me, well, how does this, what happens? What's the genetics of this? How does it pass on? Is it in the blood? And it is in the blood. It's in the genes. So it's in the map that's inside each one of our cells that tells our body how to make itself. And so you'll know people who are sickle trait or sickle carriers. So what happened for them is they got one gene from mom that was normal and one gene from dad that had this mutation. So they're a carrier. They don't really have any troubles. There are some things that can go wrong, but not very often. So they don't necessarily even know they have anything. But if they have a partner who also has the trait, then, so dad here has one gene, that's the hemoglobin HbA, that's like the normal gene, and HbS, that's the sickle gene. So he can give his child either an A or an S. Well, if he gives a normal gene and the wife gives a normal gene, then the child is completely normal and they have no problems. If dad gives a sickle gene and mom gives a normal gene, then you've got a child with a trait. But if they both give the sickle gene, you've got a child with sickle cell. Now, there are different kinds of sickle cell. I'm talking about this S one. There's another one called C, and there's another thing called beta thalassemia. So one of the things that's really confusing to normal people, and sadly also to doctors and nurses, is there's some people with sickle cell who never seem to have any trouble at all. And there's other people who at the age of 6 months start having troubles. So a lot of it depends on what kind of sickle cell they have. Every human being's a little bit different. And that's no different for sickle cell. So, what's it like to live with this? Well, we talked pain. Pain is what brings most people with sickle cell to a doctor's attention. And that can start as early as 6 months, or the first time we see it might be age 20. Depends on the kind of sickle cell. But pain is the biggest issue, and it's real sudden. Like they'll be fine, and then a minute later, boom. Because what happened was in that second, in that minute, there was a clump of blood, of these little red blood cells, and they blocked up an artery, and in that split second, they started to have pain or a problem. There are medicines for sickle cell, and I'm going to tell you about those in a minute. There are medicines now for sickle cell, but a lot of people won't take them. So think about it. How many people that do you know who have diabetes? And maybe the doctor says, well, I want you to take these shots and these pills and go on this diet. And the people are like, you know, I'm good. It's the same thing with sickle cell, especially if they have milder symptoms, or maybe a couple times a year they'll have a pain crisis. And they'll say, why should I take pills every single day when I'm most of the time I'm fine? So, but the damage can be silent, like I said, with the kidneys and the brain and the heart. So trying to get people to understand what's happening inside of them is an important part of getting them to do things to help themselves. There are some people whose sickle cell is so bad that we actually have to give them blood transfusions on a regular basis. So one of the things I know we like to talk about is donating blood. There are some things about people who come from different parts of the world where the proteins, the markers on their blood cells are a little bit different. So I'm going to say, there's no test on this, but I'm just going to say, there's one thing called the Duffy antigen, which is a little protein that's on all of our blood cells. But in many people from Africa and Saudi Arabia, they don't have that protein. It's perfectly fine. It's not a problem. But if I give them a blood transfusion from a person who has that Duffy antigen, the person getting the blood transfusion might have a reaction against that blood they're being given. Now, so it's not that people who are black have blood that's different. It's that people from all over the world have blood that's different from each other. So it is better for our patients with sickle cell if they can have blood that is from somebody who doesn't have these proteins on their cells that are less common in people who are from Africa. That's complicated, but this is all the way of saying, please donate blood if you possibly can, because we really need it for our patients. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little politics. Sickle cell lives as a medical problem. It lives at the center of a lot of racial inequity, a lot of racism, both personal and systemic. So just to give you, I need to remind my team and the people at my hospital all the time about this history. It's important. Sickle cell was first described by a white guy in 1910. Now, people from Africa knew about this disorder long before that, right? But until some white doctor says, it didn't exist. So it was described in 1910, but nobody paid attention for 39 years. And 39 years later, another doctor realized that it was a genetic thing. not just something that you acquired. Because that's something I get asked all the time. Can you develop sickle cell? No, you're born with it. You may not have signs of it till later, but you were born with it. It wasn't until 1970 that the Black Panther Party, as part of one of their platforms, they put the health care of the Black community front and center as part of their political statements. And they set up health care centers all around the country. Part of their plan, besides blood pressure and sugar and all the other things like that, was screening for sickle cell. They even got Richard Nixon to sign the first bill allocating money for sickle cell research in 1972. And then, again, nothing happened for 26 years. But hydroxyurea was approved for use in sickle cell in 1998, and it is the most common medicine used all around the world. It costs a few pennies a day to take it. It works really well. When hydroxyurea became available, prior to that, most people with sickle cell died in their 20s. Now, the average overall is about 53. So just hydroxyurea doubled the amount of years that people with sickle cell lived. But we have other medicines now. I'm off a little bit off of the political stuff. These are all the things we can do to help somebody with sickle cell. There's 3 different pills. Glutamine is like a powder that people can take to help. It's a more natural thing if somebody doesn't want to take pills. We can do blood transfusions. We've been doing bone marrow transplants for about 20 years or so, but you have to have a donor. And just in December, the FDA approved 2 gene therapies. So we can actually take a person with sickle cell, take some of their blood cells out, change them, and give them back. Now it's still a big deal. It's not like a blood transfusion. It's not simple like that, but it's a step. And it's the first time we've been able to change somebody's genes to help them be healthier and be better. So I've heard 2 comments on that. Well, why did they do it on sickle cell first? Like as if that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it was a decision that of all the genetic disorders in the world, sickle cell is the most common. So if we're going to do one first, let's do that one. They also did it for another disorder called beta thalassemia, but that hasn't gotten as much press. And they're going to be going after all the different genetic disorders with enough time. But it was not for bad reasons, it was for good reasons that they picked sickle cell first. So we have treatment. We know what causes this disorder. Why don't people get the treatment that they need and deserve? And this is where I'm back to the political things. It's because, in America, we still have a lot of issues. And just last week, one of my patients told me that he went to a hospital in Florida and was told he didn't have sickle cell. I've been taking care of this guy since he was 21 years old, and he is now 40. But because he has a kind of sickle cell that's he's not anemic, and the doctor there was ignorant, they treated him badly. We know from studies that a patient who is Black, if they go to the emergency room with a broken leg, doesn't even have to be sickle cell or anything else, they go with a broken leg, they will get less pain medicine than a person who is white. So part of what yes, I care very deeply about sickle cell and taking care of people with sickle cell, but through talking about sickle cell, I can talk to my colleagues, I can talk to the students and the fellows and say, hey, you're not doing the right stuff here. Yes, you know the medicine, but you're not treating the person right. And that needs to change. And so I call this out whenever I can. Whenever I see it, I call it out. we need to keep doing that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So what can we all do? First thing is to, yes ma'am, more good questions, yes.
Do they test babies?
Yes.
My kids are much older, but now, do they test black babies? when
Yes.
they're born?
So in New Jersey, we test everybody who's born in New Jersey gets tested for sickle cell.
Oh, okay.
But this is America, and not every state does the same things. So some states do, and I think you can probably guess which ones do and which ones don't. California has a very robust screening program. So does New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Georgia, because Emory has been really at the forefront of sickle cell care, but not Alabama, not Tennessee.
Just say Republican states don't, and Democrat states do. That's what it is.
But Georgia's purple. Yeah. There was another, yes, New Jersey does, and also pregnant women. So in Jersey, if you're pregnant, you'll get screened for sickle cell. If you don't know whether you're a carrier or not, they'll check you. That's an automatic. So find out who, one is to support our brothers and sisters who are living with this. So find out who they are. They're probably people within the church who have sickle cell, and they may not be sharing with you. We know that people don't like to talk about their problems so much. So find out who they are and support them however you can. Advocate Sickle Cell Association in New Jersey, Sickle Cell Association of America. If you can give even tiny bits of money to support research, that would be great. We need everything we can get. Donate blood, I already said. I put this slide together before something that happened earlier this year, but talking to your representatives and your senators about how important sickle cell is to the community is really important. They do things when they hear about them. So if they know you guys care, they know we care, they are more likely to do things. And just a couple of months ago, they passed a law in Trenton allocating $10 million to improve sickle cell care in New Jersey. We're going to be applying for some of that money here in Camden. We're waiting to see what we have to do to get it. Probably be helping Camp Care to provide better care. But they are listening and they are doing things. And the Sickle Cell Association in New Jersey was really instrumental in pushing that legislation. And then spread the word. One of the things that my patients tell me is they feel so alone. When they're in pain, they can't really help themselves. They worry about going to the hospital. They don't know how they'll be treated. They don't want to bother their family so much because they've been bothering them all their lives. So reaching out to them so they don't feel alone is really important. And I'm open to answering any other questions. Thank you so much for listening to me.
One question I had, you said you could donate blood.
Yes, ma'am.
And you could say for sickle cell, do they have drives, or when you go and donate the blood, you?
Oh, so we have a sign-up sheet back there. I was talking to James earlier, and he was saying that that's one of the things that they do is blood drive. So if we have some people here that are interested, then we can kind of get going. I think you said we need to have 30. Yeah, so, between what Ree Wynn is doing and Cooper and whoever else, we can get a blood drive going.
So
Or you can just go. Yeah, you can make an
Right.
appointment with American
Red
Red
Cross.
Cross. She was not able to be here today because she had a death in her family. But yeah, or you can call the Red Cross over in Cherry Hill.
So, right, if you have 30 or more, is that what they say? If you have 30 or more, they'll come to you with a big van.
Right.
But you can go call the Red Cross. They have drives all over the place, and they'll be happy to tell you when the next one is. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am?
no.
Oh, you were just, okay. Any other questions?
So can I
If you
just,
have the trait,
Uh-huh.
that doesn't mean you have sickle cell, but you can pass it, am I correct?
That's correct. And people with the trait can have problems. So, for example, oh, the screening, that was the other thing you asked me about. So anybody who plays athletics in college will get screened for sickle cell trait. Because we know that even if you're a trait, if you put that boy in football gear and you put him out on a field in August, even sickle trait could have problems. So they screen all the people with who are athletes, male and female. But so if it's really extreme, a person with trait can have problems. And also extreme things, like if you take somebody with sickle trait and you take them up to the top of Mount Everest where the oxygen levels are really low, they can have problems. Also, pregnancy can sometimes cause some problems with the kidneys if you're a trait. So it's good to know that you're trait and make sure your doctors know that you're trait. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Are there restrictions on who can and cannot give blood?
Yeah. So there are age limits. There are some travel things, like if you've been to certain countries, they won't let you donate. And obviously, if you're anemic, because that would be a danger to you to give blood when you already don't have enough. So there are some restrictions, but they've really loosened up a lot. The age used to be 60, and I think now it's 70-something, and so they've loosened up a lot. It's still very safe. The blood, every time you donate, even if you've donated 100 times, every time they screen for hepatitis, HIV, a whole bunch of other infections. They do that every single time. So the blood supply is really very safe.
So if your doctor asks you to go get a blood test,
Yes, ma'am.
the test will show, or they have to be a specialist in looking for.
So we can order thousands of tests on blood. So when the doctor sends you for a blood test, they're probably only sending you for 10, 15, a limited number.
Okay.
So unless we're looking for it, it wouldn't normally be checked.
When you say you're looking for it, now is
So like
this a primary doctor? I mean, you're.
Oh yeah, they know how to do that. If you go to your primary and you say, I don't know if I'm sickle trait and I want to know, they know what test to order for that.
When you say you die of sickle cell, do you die of sickle cell or the complications of sickle cell, such as kidney or other things that it does to you?
You die from the complications of those cells blocking up parts of you. So the last person we had who died of a blood clot. It had gone from her legs to her heart and her lungs. I've had people die from a stroke. So you die from complications of the sickle cell. So that's why if you treat the sickle cell, you don't have as many complications.
So that gene therapy can actually cleanse your.
So what they do is they take some cells from your blood that are called stem cells. Is this too much for everybody? Are you still interested? Okay. I don't want to talk. So they take these stem cells, and these are cells that are floating around in your blood that have the ability to grow you a new bone marrow. And we just are fabulously made. So we take those out, and then they can do one of two things, but more commonly, they put in another hemoglobin A gene. So the person had 2 S's, and now they give them an A. So basically, they're making them a trait. They give them back it's their own blood that's been changed a little bit. They give it back. So now those cells start making up a new bone marrow that is like as if they were a trait. The trouble is, of course, they already have a bone marrow.
Right.
So before you can give them back these changed cells, you have to give them chemotherapy to knock down their bone marrow so there's room for these new cells to get in there and grow. The first person was treated in 2018, so we don't really know how long this is going to last. The person treated in 18 is still alive, still doing well, still, like, all the pain is gone, everything looks great, looks like they're just a sickle trait. But that's 6 years. We don't know how long that's going to last.
How old was that person?
8. Yeah.
8.
Because it's hard, you know, you got to give this chemotherapy, and so you've got to treat somebody who can tolerate it, and kids can handle a whole lot more than grown-ups. But also you don't want to treat somebody who already has a lot of damage to their organs. Yeah, so you can't be too old. So most of the people who were treated were either children or young adults.
Yeah.
Amazing what they can do.
It's amazing.
So the reason that this kind of interested me also is a friend of mine, his nephew just turned 16, and when he was 15, he started this whole transfusions, chemo, the whole 9, and you know, now he's like fine. And it's just so amazing. He's like, you know, sweating his driver's permit, and it's just like, you know, a couple months ago he was laid up literally in CHOP for months going through this process. So it's just, I don't know, this stuff is just so interesting to me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
But,
Thank you.
thank you again for
Okay, James told me he's ready now. He's got his wife Fonda here for support, so now he's ready to go. So I'm going to turn it over to James Wynn from the Ree Wynn Foundation. You want this? You don't really need it.
Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me? If everybody be quiet. All right, good. Thank you for applauding. I appreciate that. That always makes me feel good anyway. I imagine anyone that does anything, when you get some applause, then you're all right, right? All right, so I'm with the Ree Wynn Foundation, and today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we were started. The Ree Wynn Foundation was started here in Camden back in 2012 after my sister passed away from a rare blood disorder. I like the way that works, so you just touch it. It really works. That's a good thing. My sister passed away from a rare blood disorder called TTP. TTP is the short name. The long name is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. Did I get that right? Yeah. Yeah. It's a long name. Essentially, it's a rare blood disorder. I think about now it affects about 4 in 100,000 people or something like that. I feel like it's not as rare as they say it is, for a number of reasons. I won't get on my soapbox. But what it does is, much like sickle cell, it can affect every part of your body. It's most dangerous in the brain because people, what TTP does is it causes blood clots in the body. There also could be excessive bleeding. Sometimes women sometimes find out when their menstrual is a little heavy. My wife always say that's not my area. So, but it causes blood clots, and the symptoms of TTP are very, very common. So my sister went into Cooper Hospital about 12 in the afternoon, complaining of flu-like symptoms, headaches, nausea, diarrhea, that type of thing. And about 10 p.m., she was diagnosed with TTP. The only treatment at that time was what they call plasmapheresis. So Dr. Clay talked a little bit about the blood, and the way we explain it is blood is made up of 3 parts: red blood cells, and she talked a lot about that, white blood cells, and then blood plasma. For people with TTP, plasma is the area that's affected, and it's affected by a gene, much like sickle cell. And that gene is called the ADAMTS13 gene. Now, ADAMTS13, some of you are old enough like me to remember the old Adam 13 TV show. You remember? Somebody say yeah. Okay. The reason I know that is because the doctor who identified that gene worked with our foundation and told us that story, right? His name is Dr. Zing. He's at the University of Kansas now. But a deficiency in that gene causes your blood to clot. It doesn't clot normally, so your blood normally clots when you're injured. So if you have a cut or something like that, then your blood immediately starts to clot in that area. Well, with people with TTP, blood clots form everywhere, and the doctor talked about different arteries and vessels in your veins where they clot. So you could imagine if they clot in your major organs, then you have severe complications, right? So they could clot in your brain, cause you to have stroke, things like that. In the case of my sister, her blood clots went to her heart. So they could not do the plasmapheresis or the plasma exchange because she had already started to exhibit complications. And due to that, she ended up passing away at the age of 38 of a heart attack, right? And this is why I say it's not as rare as they say it is because what we know now about TTP, on average, it takes about 2 days to diagnose. Not only that, at least 70% of the people who are diagnosed with TTP are first misdiagnosed. So they're diagnosed with ITP, some other disease. Some people are just told they have migraines, they're given pills, and they're sent back home. If that would have happened to my sister, we would have never known what was going on with her. So at that time, my mom, in her infinite wisdom, and much to my chagrin, because I was close to my sister and I didn't want anything to do with anybody when she passed, but Mom wanted people to donate to the TTP Foundation. There was none.
Wow.
So we spent some time looking for a TTP Foundation. We found out there was none. Mom said, okay, well, we're going to start one, and that'll be your job. So we got started. My sister passed away in January. We had our first fundraiser in March that same year, 2012. My mom passed away 2021, and the board said that I should be the president. So I guess she was right when she said that's my job. Our mission is to build awareness. I have to look every time, I'm sorry. To provide education and build awareness about TTP. TTP primarily affects Black women and women of color. Yeah, another thing that you guys have to worry about, right? So there's also a health equity element of that. The doctor talked about the fact that when African Americans go to the hospital, emergency rooms, et cetera, they don't always receive the same type of care. So that puts us right in that field. With the Ree Wynn Foundation, Mom's main thing was to make sure that people didn't have to suffer like we did, right? We consider ourselves fortunate because at least we knew what happened to my sister. It wasn't just a heart attack. It was a heart attack caused by TTP. But the thought was, how many people are out there who never know? TTP has 2 forms, much like sickle cell has a number of forms, right? So 2 forms, acquired, which means it happens all of a sudden. You may have this gene deficiency in you, but you never know because you live normally. My sister was 38, she was healthy, lived a normal life, never had any medical complications, anything like that. All of a sudden, she got sick, and she acquired TTP. That's why they call it the acquired disease. I was in the flow. You just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If they had a diagnosis very early and said it's this, could that have made a difference? And the other question is, if they know that we're not getting treated the way we should, what are they doing about it? And are these people that are doing it of another race, or how do you explain that? Why we're deliberately not being treated the way we should be, and what are they doing if they know that?
Okay, I'll get to all of those. Good questions. First, TTP, if caught early enough, as I said, there's plasma exchange. So basically, when you have plasma exchange, this is the primary treatment still to this day. There's one medication for acquired TTP, and there's another type of TTP that's called inherited. And there's one medication for that. That medication just came out this year. The acquired medication came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So all this time people had TTP, and the only form of treatment was plasma transfusion, which means they take your blood out, right? Remember, it's in 3 parts. They have to separate it. They need to give you new plasma. So when you donate blood, right? We all, yeah, a centrifuge. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, oh, the plasma centers. Yes. Octapharma is one of them, right on Route 130. Yep. So the essential part for people with TTP is the plasma. Patients complain that it's very cold, so sometimes they have to warm it before they put it back in, but they're taking your blood, your plasma out of your body and they're putting new back in. It's a very long process, and it's very hard on patients because it leaves them very fatigued and have all types of different complications from that treatment. That treatment goes on, it could go on for up to 7 weeks, at least 3 times a week. And a lot of times you don't leave the hospital during that time. You come into the hospital in the emergency room saying, I got the flu. And you don't leave for 7 weeks. And all this time you're getting plasma transfusions, at least 3 times a week, or some patients even more. Some patients during that time, they don't remember much. They go in and out, of sedation based on wherever these clots are happening. So, if it's affecting major organs and things like that, you're not going to be very functional. All this is important because later on I'll tell you more about what we do. What was your other question?
My other question is, if they know we're not being treated the way we are supposed to be, who is doing the treating, and are there teachable things here for?
Yes, there are teachable things. So one of the things that we do at the Ree Wynn Foundation is we have what we call education days. Those education days are not just for patients, or our patients call themselves TTP warriors. They're like, we're not patients, we're not nobody's victim. They're serious about it. You know what I mean? So the TTP warriors, not only is education day for them to educate them on how to advocate for themselves, and there's so little research, so little information out there about TTP that we really need to do that. But more importantly, we need to educate medical professionals, doctors, primary caregivers, people who work in emergency rooms. So we've been partnered with the University of Pennsylvania for about 5 years now. We do a full day. In the morning, it's all patients. In the afternoon, it's all doctors, either doctors or residents or fellows, people who are just coming out of medical school. TTP is literally a blip on their radar. It's about a quarter of a page. Doc, you can help me? It's about a quarter of a page in one medical book through 4 years of medical school. So,
I did one slide on it, first year medical school.
yeah. So you receive a portion, a small amount of education in medical school, and you may never see it. Most of the TTP warriors who come to our support groups, they're the only one that their doctor's treating, especially in some of the parts of the country that we call TTP deserts, the northwest, southwest parts of the country. Their doctor been working with patients for 20 years and they've only had one. I feel that most of that is because of misdiagnosis, right? And a lack of people wanting to take that step further. It's easy if you come to the emergency room with headaches or whatever, you get some medication, go home, you got migraines. But they're persistent and they keep going. All right, so TTP is rare and it's difficult to diagnose because of a lack of education. But to your point of what are we doing about it, the Ree Wynn Foundation had its first legislation day, I'll call it, where we actually went down to Washington, D.C., talked to lawmakers in New Jersey and in Maryland, because we live in Maryland, about TTP, and specifically asked them to increase funding for NIH and CDC. NIH and CDC are the biggest funders of rare blood disorders, and they're probably one of the largest funders for sickle cell as well. So, but they don't fund TTP at all. So we asked them to increase their funding so people with TTP can get more help. Also, as I mentioned, you can be in the hospital initially up to 7 weeks. When you leave the hospital, there are long-lasting effects. Fogginess of the brain fog, they call it, right? Other cognitive issues, people forget things. People, some of our TTP warriors in the support group talk about going into the store, right? Driving yourselves to the store, coming out, and completely, not just saying, oh, where's my car? Not know where your keys are, and you have them in your hand. So imagine what that does for your work experience, right? Because at work, and for the most part, these people feel fine. They feel like they're okay. You know who tells them they're not okay? Their family and their employers. So about 50% of the people are forced to either leave their job, retire, or be terminated, or take a lower paying position. So one of the things that the Ree Wynn Foundation does is we give up to $1,000 of support to pay medical bills, insurance, rent, mortgage, utility bills, whatever they need that is connected to a vendor, as long as they have a TTP diagnosis. And we do this all over the country. Our goal this year is to do 50. We've already done about 9 people. Gave away a little over $7,000, almost $8,000. So those are the things that we're trying to do about it, talking to lawmakers, educating doctors, and providing funding to people who need it so that we could do something about this terrible disease. Y'all got me talking, I done missed the slides. So as you see, what we do, we have TTP Education Days. I talked about us partnering with the University of Pennsylvania. Last year, we also partnered with Duke University. A couple years ago, we partnered with the University of Alabama as well. At Duke University, it was amazing because the doctors and the patients were in the same room. So patients really got to complain, like, why, when I tell you I don't remember stuff, you don't say nothing. And then the doctor was like, honestly, I just don't know what to do when you say that. So it was real dialogue between the two, which we felt was great. We do blood and plasma drives. Hopefully we'll get to do one here. 30 people sign up. I'm sure y'all got a lot of members. We get that going, we'll do one here. We did something called a patient-focused drug development meeting. This thing, I'm still elated about this because what this was an opportunity to do was first, we had to answer an LOI from the FDA, Federal Drug Administration. And we spent an entire day with patients from all over the country on basically a virtual meeting. We had 4 panels. We had doctors on the call as well, who just talked about TTP, how it affects people, what the symptoms are, what the treatments are currently, which is one, right? But more importantly, what the patients really wanted to see happen with new treatments. This meeting is important because we were able to, we're working now to form what they call a Voice of the Patient report, which will help the FDA to make a criteria for treatments that come down the pipe for specifically how to treat TTP patients coming directly from the patient. So I'm really excited about that. And then we have our Journey to Healing bowling event, which we just had. We have a TTP support group. We do that monthly. Our support group is a little bit different than most. It's really led by our TTP warriors. Every other month, we have an expert come in, not always a medical doctor. We have wellness doctors. We have experts in the field of financial assistance and things like that, so we could really help serve the whole person, which was also important to Mom. But these are the things we've done thus far. As I said, Duke and University of Penn last year. We did a blood drive at the Kroc Center, as well as Miller Keystone in, up near Allentown, Pennsylvania. And we have about 175 different attendees, or 175 attendees come to our support groups, which was, this is another amazing thing. After we did the PFDD, we were all over the country. This is the other thing I didn't say. We literally service people from all over the world. People come on our support groups from Australia, from Africa, from Europe, all these different places, which, you know, the doctor talked about how sickle cell is so widespread, and, you know, we've got a small number here, but there are people all over the world. Same thing with TTP, same thing. And it's amazing to see how in different parts of the world, it's treated differently. And some more educated, some less educated than we are, some more effective and less. But we're happy to be kind of a vehicle where all the TTP warriors can get together and talk about what they want to see and we try to put those things in motion. After the PFDD, you see we had this numbers from last year, 175 attendees. We had 49 that first month right after. Then we had 32, and then last month we had, 28? In just 1 month. It's amazing. All right, and then our emergency support program, we've approved 9 applicants so far and gave away about $8,000. Preguntas. Wait, that's more. Any questions? Thank you. Dr. Clay. Here you go. I have to make sure I can actually answer this.
No, I want to just, something you said, your sister, what came in, and Cooper was able to diagnose her with
Yes.
10 hours. And I want to, one of the things that's really important to me, I do education with the residents and fellows, and I would love to have you do an educational program at Cooper where this all started.
Yes.
But TTP is top of mind.
Wait, Dr. Clay.
Yes, sir.
Y'all gonna know it when I say it. Look at God. Look at God.
We lovely lady who was
Debbie.
Debbie, right here.
In front of you.
There you are. You asked, what are we doing? It's education.
Yeah.
It's bringing people in to talk. It's talking to the fellows. So if you were to come into the Cooper ER and they saw petite PI, they saw your platelet count was low and then you were a little confused, the first thing they would do is call me and my team to come see you and look at your blood under the microscope. So
Yeah.
that's why she got diagnosed in 10 hours instead of 48 hours.
You're
And that's
right.
why we didn't miss the diagnosis.
Yes, yes.
So,
And
yeah.
thank you,
And I
thank
need to
you.
be on your list of people because I saw, there's nobody in our area that's listed as a specialist in TTP.
No, so we're gonna add you.
Yeah, we've got about.
That's why it's amazing.
So you're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We definitely gonna ask you. So you were on our website.
Yeah, well,
Awesome.
I want to.
If you guys go to our website,
Young people.
rewin.org, I believe, my wife said I brag too much, so I believe in the world, first of all, we're the only TTP patient organization in this country, right? And if you look at our website, you'll be able to go, we have a resources page on our website where you can find doctors who've written articles, different clinical trials that are going on, much more information than you would even see on NIH website, right? So in the world, I think we have the most robust website for TTP, of anyone. And I'll go to bat with that. You agree with that? So yeah, please check us out. You can go to our website. You can sign up for our mailing list, participate in our blood drives, follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We're out there. Yep.
Thank you for coming because I never heard.
Thank you.
So you saying it can just pop up?
It can just pop up, and even though it primarily affects African American women, women of color, men are affected, Caucasians, people of all ages. The average age is about 35 and 52. That's the primary age. And it's primarily, like I said, black women at that age range. But then there's also what they call congenital TTP or inherited TTP. And much like sickle cell, you can go virtually your whole life and never know you have it, right? And most of the time, you know when people find out? During pregnancy. Women during pregnancy, they find, you're not gonna get pregnant though, right? Yeah, but you don't. That's another.
It's a different organization.
Yeah. But that's one of the main ways that people find out if they have what they call the inherited type of TTP. But also, inherited TTP probably affects more of a younger demographic, because if a child has an acute episode, then they dig a little deeper to find other markers in the genes that let them know that they have congenital TTP. But we got TTP warriors who were diagnosed as young as 13 and as old as 80. Now, we got a woman. Yeah, not, see how my wife correct me, 79. So I don't know the particulars of that. My guess is that they're not even testing for it. One of the things that, right.
Platelets. So to answer your, so they check the platelets, that's a regular thing. But they don't test for the Adam TS13, they don't test for that. So they'll know if your disease, if you have it, they'll know if it's active right now, but they won't know if you have, if you're missing that gene unless they go looking deeper for it.
Right. And in order for a person to have inherited TTP means that mom and dad both have the gene. And so you end up with inherited. We have a TTP warrior who has, and they call it CTTP, right? It's CTTP, who has a history in his family of people passing away from brain aneurysms or funny things with their blood. He's got CTTP. Likely, all of those people that passed away also had TTP and were never diagnosed. So.
I'm still on this question, and for you and the doctor, about the inequality of our healthcare. So
Right.
I go to Cooper or whatever emergency, and I don't feel like I got good treatment. What is my recourse at? What do I do at that time? Is a complaint you put in? Is somebody really going to look at that, or are they really going to do something about that?
Tough question.
This is Alante Thomas. She's a nurse practitioner who works with me on all kinds of hematologic disorders. She's my right-hand man.
Anytime that you come into the hospital, or if you have an office visit that's under the Cooper organization, there are patient advocates that you can get in contact with. So if there's something that you are not happy with, if you weren't happy with your care, if there was a situation that was unsatisfactory to you, you can always contact someone and let them know what the concern is. And they'll always follow up with you. They'll follow up with the person that was involved as well, to make sure that your experience is either rectified or you're feeling a little bit more confident moving forward when you come back to receive your care. But yes, there's always someone.
So in every hospital, there's a patient advocate, or is there like a 1-800 number?
I don't believe that there's a 1-800 number. However, whoever it is, if it happens to be in the ED, you can always ask the nurse that's taking care of you, who has the information, to get in contact with those people. Or you can always ask who is like the supervisor of that shift or managing that particular clinic, and then ask them if there's someone that you can talk to because you have a concern and you would like to, speak about an issue that was unsavory to you. Other hospitals I can't speak so much for, but generally speaking, they should have a patient advocacy program for you to reach out to.
I was going to say, there's also a county advocate at the ombudsman office. You can always contact your local ombudsman.
So, but you yourselves working in the field, if you see it, what do you do? If you see that somebody's not fairly treated?
So if it's me, I'm going to contact the supervisor on that unit, or I'm going to go on the website and find out how to file a complaint.
Oh, my behalf.
That's just me. Sure.
So I'll give it, I see your hand.
I just
But
wanna say
for
that,
example,
oh,
as an example, last year, one of my sickle cell patients felt that she had been really badly disrespected by one of the trainees, the residents. And that, we escalated that up all kinds of commands. It went up the doctor side and the education side, and I went in and did 2 lectures on sickle cell to the residents. That particular resident had sessions required in racial bias and identifying their own racial bias that they had to complete. And we took it really, really seriously. So I think, at least, again, at Cooper, and I can't speak for other places, when we're aware of it, it's not public. The trouble is dealing with the stuff that's real subtle, And so talking to somebody, talking to the patient advocate, talking to a doctor or nurse different than the one who was not doing the right stuff.
Right.
You gotta either go sideways or you gotta go up. And you gotta do it.
And
I think that's important information for your families to know as well, because sometimes if you're in the ER, you're not gonna be able to
You're not,
communicate
right,
that. So your family members need to know that that's an option for them to do that.
Exactly.
I just wanted to say that I go to University of Penn, and every time I visit the doctor, whether I get a blood test or whatever, we don't like taking surveys. You know, they ask you how was your experience. But I'm just saying they ask you how was your experience. And so it has to be the patient or the caregiver that reports it. Most of the time, we talk around our kitchen table and in here and not to really matter.
Please fill them out, because they actually judge us on
Yes.
that. Like, some of our pay is related to whether we're giving satisfactory service. And I get a monthly score of what you guys say about me.
Just so you know. Yeah, those are all great points. What we talk to the warriors about in the support groups is, first, don't be ashamed. If you feel like you weren't treated fairly, if you feel like you're not getting all the treatment that you need, then it's your right to say that, or to have an advocate in your family, a caregiver or someone that can advocate on your behalf. So like you said, that's the first step is with you, that you know it's okay, especially with something that's rare like TTP. Not a lot of people understand it. Most of our warriors don't know anyone else in their families or in their communities that have it, you know, and that's why they come to the support group, to get that extra little push to help them do it. All right? Thank you.
Wow. Okay, my head is like, wow, so much information, but good information. I mean, so much that we didn't know. So definitely we need to make sure that it's shared in the community. So James does have information about the support group and the emergency fund on the tables. So definitely get some of the information, some of the tchotchkes from folks. And now Miss Val. Now Miss Val came to us. She was recommended. So Reverend Phyllis Martin, who we know, and some of us remember her son Isaiah. So Isaiah works at Sickle Cell Association of New Jersey. And so he had reached out to me last year. They were trying to do a Shine the Light campaign, just try to get the word out about sickle cell in the community. So when, you know, we talked to Dr. Clay, and then I ran into James, and I said, oh, well, we got to have Sickle Cell Association come as well, because, you know, some of what we're doing is connecting folks. So they are actually based out of Newark. And so, Miss Val, I don't even know where you live.
That's okay.
Okay, but she's coming, and she is their community outreach person. So thank you so much.
Hello, hello. I know it was the blood. I know it was the blood. I know it was the blood. Save me. When I was lost, he died on the cross. I know it was the blood that saved me. The Sickle Cell Association of New Jersey was birthed out of the heart of our founder and director, Mary Bentley Lamar, because she saw the disparity in the sickle cell community. Folks weren't treating folks right. So she tried to run away from the call. But you know, when God says yes, you got to submit to his will and his way. So this is really a ministry of love, okay? Because some folks do stuff for money. And let me tell you, she reeled me in, and there was no money. She said, Darlene, I'm gonna start this agency. I was trying to say no, but God kept leading me to do this. So she went to the First Bank of Ansley Lamar, and we got started. You ever hear that bank?
No.
That's because that bank is her husband. I said, let's get some brochures printed up. And you can see our first pamphlet. It didn't look like this. But she said, will you get on my board with me? And I said, okay. She said, I'm going to get a couple of people, and we're going to do this because God said so.
Yes.
And so she went on a faith journey, and I went with her. September 2009. We started the Sickle Cell Association of New Jersey. And my heart is feeling full right now as I reflect back on our beginnings. And we still run off of the wings of prayer. Prayer is powerful. And those that are living with this deep disease need others to advocate on their behalf, to educate others, as these two have just said. It's very important. And the work we do are for those living with sickle cell disease and their immediate family with non-medical needs, okay? So we leave the clinicians, the doctors, to do what they do best, and we go before the legislators, before the governors, the senators, the mayors, all of the politicians, because in there, when we advocate, and when we put a face on the disease, and when we put the patient's voice in front, then money is allocated to make a difference. Because you can't do nothing without money. We started this association without money, but it takes money to get funded, as he was just saying. Okay? They're not allocating the money, so it's hard. So we need other people to stand with us, not only in prayer, but put your feet in motion. Because we all have the gift of advocacy within us, just like you're doing today by inviting me here. And the young lady said, can I put some of your information on our information table? See, that's being an advocate, okay? And education about these diseases is very, very important. So we even educate those with the disease, because there's a lot of people living with the disease that don't know too much about their own disease. Okay? So we educate. We have support group once a month on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And after, COVID-19, we started doing via Zoom. Now we're Zooming, and we get people not only from the state of New Jersey, but other states. Sometimes there's 6, sometimes there's 20. But no matter what, whoever Zooms in, that's who's supposed to be there at that time. So we do that. And we also have chronic disease self-management classes, diabetes self-management classes, pain management classes, and build a better caregiver classes. These are 6-week workshops, 1 day a week for 2.5 hours. This program was created through Stanford School of Medicine. So we became peer leaders, and we train other people how to conduct these workshops. And we go to the house of worship, we go to schools, we go to social organizations, we go to the hospitals, and we do these workshops at no cost to the public. That means to you. We had doctors take our classes, and then, they find out they're just like everybody else. They take off their clinician hats, and then their mommy hat comes on, or their caregiver to their own loved one, and we all are equal, and we all learn from each other. So it is a beautiful program. And I invite you to go at our website. We will send you information on that, and we will conduct these workshops here at your church. One lady, she said, well, I got a whole bunch of family members. And so we did it for her family. And she had 20 people there, and we gave her a little stipend. She made the food, And we had a wonderful workshop. All right, so we meet you where you are throughout the state of New Jersey. We have our Sickle celebration, which will be coming up June 19th, which is World Sickle Cell, Sickle Cell, Shine a Light on Sickle Cell. And we will have a block party in Newark. Yes, and back a Source of Knowledge bookstore, because we bring the word to the street. So that's going to be a fun-filled day. We have our Sickle Sabbath, where we go into the house of worship and we talk about the importance of blood donation. And don't be so scared, because the greatest blood donor was who? Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. Yeah. All right, so if he can save with his blood, and there's healing power in yours. All right? All right? All right. One more time, all right? All right. Then we have the Kitty Harkin Movies Under the Stars. That's normally in the latter part of August, where we go to Van Vleck House, Gardens and Mansion. We put up a big screen, and there's a featured film, and we do advocacy work there under God's heaven. Amen. So and it's open to any and everyone, okay? We have the Charles Drew blood drives. We have road trips. One year we went to NIH. Wow. We go to the Sickle Cell Association of America conference once a year. We do all kinds of things, okay? And we bring our families with us. We try to get grant money, so they can only, if they have to pay, they're not paying as much as they would normally have to pay. So we have our Charles F. Whitten Awards, and that's to clinician and community workers that have helped spread the word about sickle cell awareness. So our agency, what we do is at no cost to the patients and their immediate family. And I would ask that you would support us in prayer. Maybe you want to do a walk. Just advocate, because education is the key. All right? We can no longer sit by and be ignorant and wait for other folks to do things, because they're not going to do it. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Okay? And too long, we've just been sitting and praying, but not putting our faith to action and working. So I want to applaud you for you and your wife for what you do. And my heart is so filled at this time that you would leap out in faith and go into the deep. And I know God will cause an uprising to everything you guys put your hands to, because you're making the world take notice. And it only takes one small seed of faith, and then the tree arises and spreads out with many branches. Dr. Clay, I want to thank you, because for years I've heard about you, and this is the first time I'm seeing you face to face, but your work has gone before you. And there's power, you know, in a name. And there's credibility in a name. I'm saying there's credibility in yours, because I hear it from the lips of your patients. So I pray a covering over you and all that you do and all that are affiliated with you, that there'll be an overflow, and God will continue to bless not only you and your household, but your ministry, because it's more than a money thing. So I pray a covering over you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for all the works that you do. Thank you for this invitation. I've learned so much from you and what you do. And I'm just, you know, and the light needs to shine on what you're doing here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming.
Because you didn't have to ask. But you did?
Yeah.
All right? That's what we got to do. Open your mouth. What you want? Open your mouth. Amen. I got that preaching spirit on me. I better sit it on down. But also, let me tell you, we also do COVID awareness education. I have a couple of COVID vaccine tests. over here, it is very important that you protect yourself. Okay? Like I said, education is the key. And if you're not gonna wear a mask, then you need to get a shot. If you ain't gonna get a shot, you need to be masked 24/7 when you go out, so you don't give somebody else something. Okay? I'm just saying that, I'm just keeping it real. My sister died of COVID, I know it was COVID, 3 months before anybody ever announced this. She woke up and said, I feel a little warm, can I have a glass of water? She had been to the doctors 3 times and they told her she had a cold. Her husband handed her a glass of water and she was going. And then, after, because your lungs don't turn to stone, hers don't to stone. So anyway, I'm just saying, do what you need. If you don't think about yourself, think about your loved ones. Okay? So if you're not going to get a shot, wear a mask, because it's your right, it's your, you do whatever you want to do. Okay? But I thank you so much. God bless you all. And continue to be great advocates. Thanks for coming.
Wow. All right, y'all, that chronic disease self-management program, we used to do it at my job. It's excellent. There's enough of us up in here that could justify doing it here, if y'all are interested. So we got that y'all might be interested in. Let me know. Blood drive, sign up over there. And hey, did y'all know we were back to doing wellness ministry? Yes, we are. We are the wellness ministry. Awesome. Thank you, man. I'm excited now. All right. So chronic disease, one of the things that, when you've got some of these chronic stuff, you realize that your mental health, your mental is really impacted as well. Dr. Janet Phillips has been here before when we've done our health fairs. I think the last time she came with a couple cuties. I think they might have been her sons or something. But she is back. And so I kind of like the mental health to me is always like the putting it all together, because sometimes, we need that to keep it all together. So I'm just going to have her come up, and she is from Rutgers University Behavioral Health. And here's Mr. Janet.
I don't have the talent to sing, so it was a tough act to follow. Yes. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, those were my 2 sons when they were like this high. Now they're like somewhere here. But thank you, everyone. Good afternoon at this point. So I'm Janet. I'm with Rutgers Behavioral Health. I cover the southern region, which is Burlington, Gloucester, Camden counties, but we are also branching out to a little further into Atlantic and Salem and Cumberland counties. So we offer mental health treatment as well as addiction treatment. I'm not sure if that's something you guys are familiar with or come in contact with in the community. I know it's not a comfortable topic, but we work wherever you're at, whether it's depression, whether it's grief, whether it's loss, trauma, intensive mental health treatment like bipolar, any suicidal ideations. We work across the gamut for both mental health and addiction. We work with folks 18 and over. We provide, I brought some flyers so you can always look at your own leisure. So it's folks 18 and over that have mental health and addiction needs. For our acute program, we provide transport to those 3 counties. If they do have Medicaid, we're able to also link them with medical transportation to come on site. Sometimes folks actually drive them in, or we are right off the 404 bus line, which is right behind the Cherry Hill Mall. We also have our IOP program and outpatient program, and it's mostly groups. We also provide individual counseling and medication management. For our IOP and outpatient program right now, there were some things that were good that came out of COVID, some not so great things, but definitely some good things. We were able to offer services virtually. So for our initial appointment, you do have to come on site for an in-person actual intake. After that, you're able to, if it's more convenient for you to actually come and attend virtually. So either by Zoom or phone, you can still link for services, or you can still come on site, whichever is more convenient for you. We schedule daily, so there's never a waiting list. We do offer all medication treatment options, so the doctors are able to provide Vivitrol, naltrexone. whatever's going to work with the client to support them being well. If you need a higher level of care, we're able to facilitate that. We work with just about every provider throughout New Jersey. We have identical programs in Monmouth Junction and Newark for our same levels of care, and we also have other inpatient and outpatient services throughout New Jersey. Our inpatient is in Piscataway and Newark. We have outpatients across the entire New Jersey. So I do have some flyers and brochures. There's a little QR code here on our postcards. It'll take you to our website, which will list all the programs throughout New Jersey. You can either call our office directly for services, or there's a 1-800 number, and they schedule daily. So if you ever call, or the person just wants to find out information, they can do that, and they'll link you to the program that's most appropriate for you. If you ever have questions, you can always call our office. Hillary knows me very well. You can always stop in if that's more convenient for you, because sometimes you might not be feeling it on a Monday, but on Wednesday you're kind of open to that treatment. I know loved ones have brought people in just to find out, is this a good fit? Do I have some questions? Is it just about medications? We try and answer whatever we can, the best that we can. If it's something that's more of a state of crisis, we will also provide that support to get you to crisis. Does anyone have any questions so far?
We never do. We don't talk about mental health stuff in our community.
Of course not. But
I have a son that's a schizophrenic bipolar, so I'm very familiar with mental health. I'm going to take your card.
Sure.
Right now, he's on his meds, so he's
No problem. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes just being a resource, y'all, having information. You never know when we might need it. You never know. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Phillips?
I think sometimes the biggest question is as far as insurance. So we work with clients who have Medicaid, private insurance, as well as the uninsured. We have a charity care program through the university for anyone who doesn't have insurance in place. But we also assist them in the process of getting their insurance in place. For our IOP and outpatient program, we're also able to work with Medicare.
Can I just ask, what is one of the ways we can break the stigma, especially in people of color community, about mental health, talking to mental health professionals? Because a lot of us, we're used to keep everything in your own home, or shut it up, keep it, wrapped up. We're so used to that.
The way I was taught, it's just like any other medical situation. So just like if you had a heart situation, you would address it, right? Right, you would see the doctor appropriately, you would follow the medication regimen, you'd follow with the provider, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like that. If you're gonna take your cardiac medication, or you're gonna see the cardiologist, if you have a mental health situation, whatever it is, whether it be the depression that's keeping you out, or, sometimes people had a death and they wanna, process through it. Just address it, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a little different, because if you say you have a heart problem, I go to my heart doctor. You say you went to see a mental herb or something, you're crazy. So it's not kind of, they don't look at it like.
I think we need to stop
Right.
calling that, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I could just say, I'm gonna go see Hillary, okay?
Right. Exactly. You're absolutely right, but I'm saying, that's not the way it's taught, it's the way.
Well, I think we need to have that responsibility of changing that.
Right.
We need to teach our, our family members, our loved ones, our circle, that it's okay to talk about that. It's much better to talk. We're more about intervention, so we want to address it now before you're at a stage where you're like, okay, I now have to go, on an intensive situation to be in a hospital. Well, nobody wants to be in a hospital for that. Nobody wants to be, committed. Nobody asked for that. So we would rather address it like right now where, I'm depressed, I'm not getting out of bed, I'm not showering, I'm not eating, I'm cursing everybody out. Let's get it here.
Yeah. We have to recognize that mental health starts from the cradle to the grave. Yeah. And I think once.
Isn't that DMX?
I think once we start looking at it, because we're all always dealing with something or transitioning from something to something, whether good or bad. It starts from the cradle to the grave, our mental health. And then I think we're more apt to seek out professionals, clergy, or whatever we need so that we can live with peace with ourselves. So I thank you for being one of those listening ears.
Yes, thank you.
And just to go back to your question, it's about empowerment. So we want our next generation to do better, to feel better, to achieve more. So if we don't address it now, it's not gonna, it doesn't just go away.
Nope.
Right? You just sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. Next thing you know, you're tripping over it.
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
It's been swept for so many years, so many decades, but let's address it now.
I think it's getting better though. I think people are talking more than what they used to.
I agree with you. I mean, we see it on billboards, we see celebrities talking about it.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. And to go back to a question you had earlier, if ever there's a situation in which we can work better, let us know. Because if you don't tell us, I think I did it right.
You think you're doing great.
Right. Well, thank you again for having me. Thank you, Hillary, for inviting me.
Thank you.